Hello, my name is Blofeld and I'm a literary agent, and I am here to talk to you about what it is that literary agents do. First of all, I think I'd like to start by talking about what they don't do. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, both good and bad, about literary agents. And on the one hand, you've got large numbers of people in the self-published community who regard literary agents simply as parasites. We're the middlemen, along with publishers. We don't really add any value to the process. And in the brave new world of KDP, we're not needed. And for some people, I'm sure that's true, although I've got several self-published authors on my books, and I like to think, and I think they agree, that I do a pretty good job for them. The other misconception, I think, is that literary agents can be some sort of great be-all and end-all, and that getting a literary agent, and in particular getting that almost mythical being, an Uber agent, on your side and signing up with an Uber agent is tantamount to getting published. And that's equally, I'm afraid, not true. There's a lot to be said for having an agent, and it is certainly a step along the road to getting published, but I'd be very wary of equating being represented by a big agent with anything that really amounts to success as a writer. The road is a long and arduous one, and indeed I would say being published is really actually also only a first step, although I know that can seem like a strange thing to say to most writers, and I've been one myself, who are sitting at home in front of their computers typing away, wondering if anyone is ever going to like what they do. And I suppose that brings me to what it is, the first thing it is that literary agents do, and what I do when I spend probably more time than anything else doing, which is reading. I am constantly looking for new authors, new talent, new voices, people I think are wonderful, and I read an enormous number of submissions every week. The agency gets upwards of 100 submissions every week, and we spend an awful lot of our time sifting through those. Obviously I get plenty more come in through contacts, through people I've talked to, through various sources, and I'm always ready for submissions, because I think, like most agents, I'm always hopeful that I'm going to find the next amazing thing. I have to say, the vast majority of the time I'm disappointed. My acceptance rate is probably less than 1 in 100. But that's something I'll get on to another time, I think. So I read and I look for things that make me forget that I'm working. I mean, that's really the quintessence of it, is if I read something and think, this is wonderful, then I know that I'm onto something. At the same time, though, I am principally, and I think this is true of all agents really, looking for things that I think I can sell, i.e. that I can add value to. My job is to help writers make money. That's really all that I'm there to do, and I only make money for the agency if my authors make money, and therefore that's what pays my wages. So we're not arbiters of literary taste, we are people who are there to judge and evaluate and to know, hopefully, the market. Obviously, what the market wants is never clear, and one of the great rules of being an agent is that whenever a publisher tells you what they want, or whenever you can spot a bandwagon, the chances are it's on the verge of leaving the station. You know, what publishers want to some extent is last year's bestseller. But obviously there's a law of diminishing returns, and the general rule is that the great game-changing bestsellers, whether it's J.K. Rowling or E.L. James, come from left field. No one particularly expected them or spotted them. So, you know, one should always take an agent's and indeed a publisher's expertise with a pinch of salt. However, there are very good agents out there, and there are very talented publishers out there. So that matters, and that's an important thing to think about. So I read manuscripts, I look for what's good, I then, if I read something I love, I ask to see more of it, I read the whole book, I still love it. An awful lot of books maybe aren't as good as their first 30 or 40 pages, they disappoint in the end. I maybe give some notes but don't sign people up. But hopefully, I love the book, I get to the end, I think, well, let's maybe tweak this and tweak that. I do edit, and I work with editors, and I have people who read for me, and I try and form a reasonably wide opinion as to what the merits and demerits of the book are, and try and fix as many of them as I think I can. Again, that's, I find, something one has to be careful with, because it's a publisher's job to decide how the form in which a book is published, and I think as an agent you have to be careful not to over-edit so that you take it to too finished a point. I think it's important to leave a certain amount of finishing yet to be done for publishers, although that's a very tricky game. But anyway, the book gets edited, and I sign up the author. That's an important point, and one of the very important points about that process for our agency and for any of the reputable London agencies and agencies elsewhere is that the agreement is a pretty loose agreement. Agents collect commission on the work that they do for you, on deals that they do for authors. That's the only way they earn money. They don't charge money for editorial services. They don't charge money for publishing. They take a share of the money that they earn for you, of the deals they do for you, deals that you do for yourself, they have no claim over, and there is no claim on future earnings, as you can sometimes find in the kind of management area or the celebrity agent area, where people can lay claim to future earnings of pop stars or whatever it is. That is not the case in the literary world. It is essentially a rather gentlemanly agreement, or one hopes it is. And when it works, it can be a very long-term agreement. I mean, I know of, I've got a colleague who's got clients she's had for 30, 40 years. And that's, outlasting editors and indeed in many cases husbands and wives. It can be a very long-term and very valuable relationship, because one of the things that an agent is your first reader. You're the first person who really says, wow, you are terrific. And that's a very powerful thing. And if that trust is nurtured and maintained through a successful career, that's a great thing. And I think that's very important to authors. Writing is a lonely thing, and it's great to have someone you feel you can really trust to be the first person to really look at something, to be the person who can say, this is going in the wrong direction, perhaps, give you the criticism that you need or the encouragement that you need, either one. So you've signed up, the book's in a great condition, and I then take it out to publishers. I will think about which lists will want the book, which editors are most likely to want the book, be looking at the comparisons in the marketplace, what am I going to compare it to, how am I going to pitch it, trying to do as much of the editor's work as I possibly can, because editors they are the people I send the book to, but they then have to, if they like something, they then have to pitch it to their colleagues, and so giving them as much ammunition as one possibly can, aside from the fact that your book is wonderful, is really important. So you send it out to 10, 12, 8 editors, however many it's going to be. Sometimes it's a small number. The days of, I think, doing limited submissions and trying to do deals over lunch are long, long, long gone, and it's now everything is bought by committee, consensually, in a collegiate way by publishers, and so I think one must submit on that basis. And you then hopefully have a situation where someone offers, and you then manage that process. You encourage other people to try and offer, perhaps, and if you're lucky, you get an auction situation going, and maybe the book sells for a huge amount, although that can itself be a pitfall and isn't always the best outcome. But you get to a point where a publisher has made an offer, and you negotiate the deal, and you negotiate the contract, and that's quite a protracted process, because publishing contracts are frankly arcane documents. They are, I think, rather ridiculously out of date, but they are what we've got, and they've arrived after nearly a century of compromise and fudge, and they represent all sorts of different stages of the publishing, business, which it doesn't actually possibly reflect where we really are now, but that's a different matter. And so they're complicated documents, and they do need careful looking at. And I will say, for those people who are sceptical of what agents do, is that every time that I've had an author come to me saying, well, I've got a deal, so I thought I should get an agent, which does sometimes happen, could you have a look at this contract? I have been able to add 15% plus of value to that contract just by my expertise, and I think any agent could do that. I mean, I'm not claiming any great special expertise myself here. It's really important to get someone professional to do that, and although the Society of Authors offers a very good service for that, they are not going to negotiate on your behalf, perhaps, and whatever. I think there's still good grounds for having an agent, but if you're confident about your ability to do business yourself, then go for it. So we have the deal. That does not end my relationship with that book and the process of my involvement, because in fact, to some extent, the real work then starts. The most important bit, getting published, is, particularly in today's climate, merely a stepping stone towards, it is a long way off being successfully published. The vast majority of books don't work. The vast majority of authors get a deal and then do not get big success, subsequent deals. They might get one other, or but the longevity of career is highly elusive and requires an enormous amount of luck, apart from anything else, but also input, and successful input and management from agents and from authors and from publishers. And so I work with the author and the publisher I'm an intermediate. I'm there for when there needs to be a row, because obviously ideally you want the author and the editor to be good friends and to get on very well. So if there is tension, let me be the one to kind of be the one conveying it, and let it all be the lightning rod for that. But also let me be the one to perhaps ask awkward questions about what the sales team are up to, how the selling is going, what the digging into the numbers a bit, pushing for meetings, making sure that meetings take place and that the right people are there and that the team really are focused and that people are paying attention to the publishing of the book, because publishers have very busy lists, and although they all want and intend to publish every book as well as every other book, we know that that isn't the case. Some books get more attention, inevitably, because they paid more money, because they're bigger authors, and they stand a greater chance of success. So for debut authors in particular, getting them the space, the right slots, the right point in the calendar to be published, all of these things are incredibly important. Working on the jacket, trying to make sure that the best possible chance of success sticks to that book is hugely important. And that leads right the way up to publication. So there'll be the possibility of reviews, of publicity, and working we're making sure that everyone's happy and everyone's focused, because there are a lot of people, there's marketing people, publicity people, sales people, and an author who is perhaps had no experience of this before, and of course the book is their baby, so it can be a very fraught and difficult process, because they're watching their baby get taken away by publishers, and publishers can be frustrated by the way that authors want to control things, and they have a slight nanny knows best attitude, very understandably, because they are experts, but of course it's your baby, so that can be, it's not always an easy relationship, again, particularly in the digital era, where there is this great drumbeat of, I could have done it all myself, and maybe I didn't need a publisher, and suddenly all this anxiety kicks in. But hopefully it works well, and the selling works well, and there is support, miraculously, from Waterson's and from Smith's and from supermarkets, if you're lucky. And it gets the reviews, and it works well, and then it sells, and that's, let's face it, the most important thing. And then you're in with a shout, and then you can start to think about career. At the same time as all of that's been happening, I will